Figs. They're one of my favorite fruits. A great natural sweetness, almost a jelly-like consistency. Pretty underrated fruit as well, if you ask me. Also remind me of fig Newtons, so great childhood snack. So today on Cooking with Parker, I'm going to show you how to make some homemade fig Newtons. It's going to be a great time in the kitchen. This is also F is for figs in my series Fruits A to Z. Can't wait to show you this simple recipe, and let's go.
I've always liked fig Newtons.
I agree with Brian Regan there. He's an underrated comedian, if you ask me, so sharing some of his kind of take on fig Newtons as we go along. But we're starting with our pastry dough. So start with half a cup of butter and then half a cup of brown sugar. You want to pack it in there tightly. I weigh it out as well. So you want it 100 grams, and then we're going to weigh out our flour as well. So about 120 grams of that, anywhere from 120, 125. Different sites or recipes kind of disagree a little bit on that, but just 1 cup of flour, and then we're doing 1 cup of whole wheat flour. This will give some extra great flavor and consistency, kind of matches the original fig Newton. And so weighing that and 120 grams of that. Next, we're going to add 1 whole egg and then an egg yolk to our butter and sugar mixture. So this is called creaming it. You just want to work the butter and sugar till it's nice and smooth, kind of a little fluffy. Then we're going to separate our egg yolks. I just use my hand, kind of let the white fall through, hold on to the egg yolk. It's pretty simple. You don't need any of those fancy tools that you might see. So we're just going to work that until it comes together. The egg will give a nice help it fluff up and be creamy as well. I'm going to add 1 teaspoon, which is like 4.5 grams of baking soda, and then a teaspoon of nutmeg. This will give a nice, really great brightness. You can use cinnamon, cardamom, all sorts of things, but nutmeg's kind of my go-to. And then I'm going to do kind of a pinch of salt, probably 1/4 teaspoon, just using my salt cellar, measure that out. Use a fork to whisk this up, just get it all combined. Now I'm going to go ahead and zest 1 orange, so we're going to use this both in the pastry dough and in the filling. So just kind of go around top to bottom. You just want to be nice, smooth, consistent motion. Still getting better at this, just kind of practice makes perfect. Just want to get a nice, even zest on there. And then we're going to grab a nice pinch, probably about a teaspoon, drop that into the pastry dough, just keep it mixing. I'm going to slowly pour in our flour mixture. Just kind of let this work on slow until it starts to come together. You need to grab a spatula, kind of scrape down the sides to make sure everything gets nice and incorporated. And it's going to take a few minutes, just give it some patience, and then we're going to flour a nice clean surface using my nice cutting board right here. Grab our dough. It's kind of pretty sticky at this point, so we're going to have to let it rest. But just go ahead and pull that out of the bowl and get it off of the tines of my mixing whisk. And so we're just going to make sure we get all those crumbs off there. Don't want to leave too much behind. Leave a little bit for ourselves if we want. And we're going to knead this for about 20 seconds or so. Just sped it up a little bit here so you see the process. And we're just going to work this till it comes together as a nice firm ball. And then we're going to pat this out into a 4x8 rectangle. And we'll just use our pastry cutter or bench scraper, either way, to flatten it out. And then we're going to wrap it in some nice plastic wrap. Got Kirkland brand here, so a big old package, lasts a long time. And just get a nice and tight seal on there. I'm going to pop this in the fridge after that. So Cooking with Parker, you see kind of the whole thing. Got my nice messy full fridge here. Don't worry about that. I learned a lot of cooking from my mom, so one of the best parts of cooking with her growing up was getting to lick the bowls in the batter, so still do that. Nothing wrong with that. Get a little snack.
Who the hell eats 2 cookies? I ate fig Newtons by the sleeve.
I don't quite do that, but when I finished making these, I probably did eat about a half dozen. They were just that good. So go ahead and make our fig filling now. Just grab me some black mission figs. These are so nice dried fig from California. Have a great sweetness to them. The dark color will be great for our filling. So I had to go to Whole Foods to find these, but you can order them online or maybe some other kind of boutique stores. Just don't try to get them at like Walmart or a little small local shop. But just cutting the tips off because those are going to be a little bit tough. And then put them in a nice heavy bottom pot. We're going to add half a cup of water and then 1/8 of a cup of triple sec. So you don't have to use the alcohol. You can do all water or maybe some orange juice or something. But the triple sec, the alcohol is going to give some extra depth of flavor, just really brighten things up. And then we're going to use fresh orange, just squeeze all the juice out of there that we zested earlier. This also gives some nice, great brightness of flavor, really liven things up. And then grab the rest of our orange zest, and it's going to give a really great, deep, rich filling, have that fig flavor really coming through, but kind of balanced out by the natural sweetness of the oranges. Just going to cook this on about medium-high heat until it kind of boils out, all the water evaporates. The figs will kind of plump back up, rehydrate. So then we're going to pour these into a nice food processor. And make sure you get some of those drippings of the liquid. You don't want to leave that behind either. It's going to help kind of hydrate things. Seal this up and blend it for about 20 seconds till it comes together. So kind of skip to the end here. going to come together almost as a smooth ball, so it's going to be pretty stiff, kind of firm filling. A lot of the recipes I read called for putting in a piping bag at this point, but my test batch that didn't work super well, so I decided for the second round to go ahead and just kind of put it on a sheet pan, and I'm going to spread this out into kind of a thin little sheet. That'll make putting it on our fig Newtons as the filling a little bit easier later on. It's pretty stiff, pretty sticky, so just kind of take my time, work it, smooth it out, just grabbing the back of the spatula, kind of pushing into that pan, push it to the edges, smooth this out until about a 6x10 rectangle, using another type of bench scraper, just a nice smooth plastic one, so it's not going to cut into the foil, and just cut in 5 thin strips. So we're going to use this, as I said, as our filling.
I open them both and eat them like a tree chipper. Fig Newton shavings coming off the side.
Said I couldn't do justice to Brian Regan if I tried to imitate him, so just sharing those clips. But we're going back to our pastry dough. It's sat up in the fridge for about an hour or so, gets nice and firm. Butter solidifies back again. And we're going to use a ruler, make sure to get nice even pieces. It's about 1.5 inches each time. We're going to cut these into 5 strips, and so we're just going to work with one at a time, and so that it kind of stays nice and firm. You don't want the butter to soften up on you too much. And just cut these, rewrap it, and then we're going to flour our surface nice and heavily. It's pretty sticky dough, so don't be shy about using the flour. Make sure you flour up your rolling pin as well. You grab our dough ball, and we're going to roll this out, flatten out first to about a 12x3 inch shape. So as I said, this is my second time making this, second batch. It's not like some of my earlier recipes that I had a lot of practice with, so a little sticky, adding a little more flour too. It's not going to hurt anything. And always kind of dust it off at the end. Just kind of roll it back and forth till we get a nice, good rectangle. Take some time, take some practice. I'll probably work on this recipe a few times till I'll kind of get it mastered if I feel like it. And then I'm going to grab our pastry cutter, just kind of smooth off the end. You want a nice kind of crisp rectangle that'll just give you really pretty things. We're not on Great British Baking Show, so I'm not being, super worried about exact, but I do want them to look nice and pretty. You always eat first with your eyes is what people say. So just going ahead, grabbing our filling. It's a little sticky, as I said, just kind of slowly pulling that off the foil. I'm going to put it down the center of our pastry dough that we just rolled out and keep going from there. Just kind of lay it out, and kind of still figuring this out as I go along. So this isn't a practice recipe, just kind of showing you what I'm doing, cooking with Parker. I'm not going to always workshop everything a whole bunch, don't have time for that. But took this into work and everybody loved it. So even though they weren't the prettiest things, this first little batch, working on it, I didn't roll it out quite enough, so it's a little short. Gonna have to kind of patch it up, but it's gonna work out all right. Just kind of folding it over one side, tuck it in, grab a little water that'll help kind of seal up your dough. Don't want to add too much, get it too sticky. Just kind of press everything together. Thankfully, I got some extra dough on the ends here, so just kind of cut that off and use it to fill in the gaps. Just kind of press it all together. It's nice sticky dough, so it comes together. Just use my hand, kind of pat it all together, and then use my bench scraper to cut these into 6 about 1.5 inch pieces. Could cook it as a log, but cutting it up is going to give nice kind of crisp edges to the fig Newtons, and it's going to help with the final texture. We actually want these going to be soft and chewy, and at the end, I have to let them rest to do that. But once they're cut, go ahead and scrape them up and use with my pastry cutter and set them on a parchment lined pan. You want to make sure the parchment's on there so they don't stick to the pan. Kind of helps with the final texture as well, keep it nice and light. So use my pastry cutter again, get the trimmings kind of out of the way. And great tool to have. I've got a link in the description along with the rest of the tools I use in this video. So if you want it, it's an underrated tool. Go ahead and get it, add it to your kitchen arsenal. You'll find yourself reaching for it more often than you think. So go ahead and flour up our cutting surface again and flour up our rolling pin. It's the center piece of the pie crust, so it's a little bit easier to work with than the end cut I just had. But we're gonna just roll this out till we get a nice rectangle about 3 to 4 inches wide and 10 to 12 inches long. You don't have to be super exact, but because you're gonna kind of trim it to the shape you want. But you just want to get a nice kind of even square. Pastry is pretty crumbly. You're gonna get a nice kind of flaky final texture. You just got to be careful when you're working with it. So I kind of broke off a little bit. Just kind of put that together, seal it back up. Use a little bit of water one more time to kind of seal it together. And once we got that, we're gonna go ahead and grab another piece of our fig filling. Just kind of pull this off. It's firmed up a little bit more in the fridge as it sat as I was working on this, so it comes together a little easier than the first batch. And then we'll grab my trusty bench scraper one more time to kind of roll this over. It's great assist. Some of the recipes I looked at said that you could use parchment paper or film wrap underneath. Probably should have gone that route, kind of make folding over the pastry dough a little bit easier so it doesn't break on me, but just kind of work with what I got, figure it out as I go along. So as I said, got this a little bit wider, still not quite wide enough. There's kind of a little gap in the middle, but I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of push everything together, use some of the extra dough I got at the end to kind of seal up those gaps. And it's gonna give a nice kind of real pretty fig Newton here. As they say, practice makes perfect. So second one's not quite as cracked and crumbly as the first, got it down a little bit more. And we'll go ahead and cut this into 6 pieces again. Mentioned Great British Baking Show earlier. It's one of my favorite shows. So doing stuff like this really gives me respect for the contestants, trying to make everything looking exact for the judges when they're given a recipe, kind of doing it for the first time in their technical challenges. It's always a little judgmental watching. It's like, I can make that easily, but here I am in my home, get all the time in the world and no pressure, and it still can't get a nice exact one. So it just takes some time and practice. More props to those guys on the show. And if you watch the professional version, it's really incredible what they're putting out. Most recipes call for preheating your oven as the first step. I think that's a waste of electricity. Wait till about 10 to 12 minutes out from actually needing to put in the oven. So these were taking me a few minutes to make each time. Didn't film making the rest of them, but just go ahead and rolled out my dough, put the pie filling on there, folded it all together. Once I got that, go ahead and pop this in the oven. Bake these at 325 Fahrenheit. So we're gonna clean as we go, and then we're gonna bake these for 12 to 15 minutes till they get light golden brown. Careful, the wheat's a little bit deceptive, but you just wanna look till they're kind of firm to the touch, got a good color on them. There we have 26 beautiful fig Newtons, are pretty enough. As soon as they're cooled off a little bit, but still slightly warm, we wanna put them in an airtight container with some paper towels. So the moisture will kind of help soften them up, give you a nice chewy texture that you're looking for in a fig Newton. So seal this up, and it's gonna kind of, not steam, but just kind of moisten things up. It'll be even better the next day. Here's Brian Regan one last time.
I already had 2 whole entire fig Newtons. Maybe I could try to muscle one more down, but I don't think I'm gonna. I am stuffed with the rafters.
Now for my favorite part of the video, the taste test. So good, just like store-bought fig Newton, but way better. Got all the fresh ingredients with the dried figs, giving a nice, robust, rich flavor. Can't go wrong with these. Second time making them, probably do it a bunch more now that I've done this. And one of my favorite ways to have figs. Go ahead and try a store-bought one for comparison. And it's good, but something a little bit special about doing it from scratch. And remember, F is for figs and fruits A to Z. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Make it at home, let me know how it goes, and I'll see you next time.